All right, everybody, welcome back. It's the end of the world with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Stu, and today we are continuing our focus, our mini-series on the afterlife by finally getting into the realms of written literature, one of the oldest tales ever told, the Epic of Gilgamesh.
hmm Which I think you can rightly call a masterpiece,
I would call it a
as
masterpiece.
opposed to Looper or whatever you would.
Yes, I would say it's slightly better than even Looper. Gilgamesh is an interesting text, not one that I encountered before I started. I mean, I encountered it, but I never really engaged with it until I had to teach it for this ancient lit class I used to offer at John Jay College for
Mhm.
2008 to 2019.
Before we go any further, I think it would help me as sort of the ignorant one here, but also maybe the listeners, like talking about what for those of you who did listen last week to the prehistory one. What kind of gap in time are we dealing with between what we were talking about, the site we were talking about at the end of this last episode,
Göbekli
to
Tepe.
Gilgamesh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Göbekli Tepe was abandoned around 9,000 BC, something like that, maybe a
Mhm.
little later. And the Epic of Gilgamesh, the earliest version of it, I believe, is from around 2200 BC. So we're talking about 7,000 years, roughly.
Okay.
So quite a long time. I'm glad you mentioned last week because a friend of the podcast, Justin, sent me a interesting documentary about this new sort of early hominin species called Homo naledi
Oh,
that
interesting.
was found in a cave. And there's a lot of scholarly fight about this, but this guy Berger, who's the sort of lead anthropologist on that,
Mm.
argues that there's evidence for tool usage, for art creation, and ceremonial burial. And Homo naledi is like much earlier than even Neanderthal or certainly modern human. It's like
Mhm.
150,000 years old. So, but as I said, there's his studies were he's a bit of a media hound. He like did a
Oh, really?
documentary and went to newspapers and did a ton
Bit of
of.
a Sam Harris.
No, he's a little bit more
More.
esteemed than Sam Harris, I would
I
say.
meant more the media hounds
No,
side
I
of.
mean, could anyone be more of a media hound than Sam Harris? I don't know. Not a big Harris head, believe it or
Yeah, same.
not. In fact, I remember once I was bowling and there was this kind of cool girl who wore like weird clothes and we all thought was kind of cute. And then one day at bowling, she was just sitting reading a Sam Harris book. I was like, the dream is over.
It's like what was it there was the Bill Simmons, one of his. I was an early reader of Bill Simmons, right? As I'm sure you were. And there was
Yes.
like this article about Nora Jones. Do you remember this? And how he had a huge crush on Nora Jones, and he described the phenomenon of like finding out someone has a boyfriend that
Uh-huh.
you like have a crush on, which was really funny. He's like Bill Simmons, like thinking he's kind of maybe in with a shout with Nora Jones while he's the Boston sports guy. But
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is kind of like the far less like romantic sort of soft version of that, like I really liked you dot 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 Sam Harris, like nothing, very few things I think can turn you off more quickly. You speaking specifically about you.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. But so basically
7,000.
what we said last week, there may be even earlier examples of ceremonial burial and art making and cave like burials and things like that. So the jury's still out on all that, but we'll wait and see. So with Gilgamesh, we're jumping way ahead, and the main reason we're doing so is because Gilgamesh is a written text. We have a written version of what was probably an oral tradition for hundreds of years prior to it being written down.
And how long, in terms of the process of the refining or evolution of the written word, have we gone until Gilgamesh comes? Like, when did that start, and how did
It's a
that
little
process?
hard to say. It's written in cuneiform. The earliest form is in Sumerian. Later versions are in Akkadian and different other languages. Generally speaking, when you read a text of Gilgamesh, it's an interpolation of several different versions
Mhm.
because the nature of cuneiform is interesting. It's written on clay tablets. You kind of use a stylus to impress these little cross-shaped marks that are make up the script,
Mhm.
and a lot of the times cuneiform texts that survive are the ones that were present when a city was destroyed, because in the
Hmm.
process of the city burning down, the clay gets fired and hardened. Like
Oh,
when you
fascinating.
were a kid, you put your clay thing in the kiln, right? And it would, if it had any air bubbles in it, it might explode. This was always the dice roll
Right.
with,
It's just the opposite. It's like in the paper heavy era, it was like, well, we know one thing. All the literature's gone.
yeah, the
And in the era
Library of
well, we know one
Alexandria.
thing. All the literature's safe.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. The Library of Ashurbanipal is the most, and that's from much later. That's from, I think, in the 500s or 600s BCE. And that was an example of the Assyrian Empire collapsed, city was sacked, and his library of these precious clay tablets, but buried
Right.
thousands of years later,
Ah,
archaeologists
amazing.
stumbled upon it, and thankfully we have much of our knowledge of the ancient world because of this. Yeah, so this is the interesting thing about Gilgamesh is they think he was a historical person. There was a guy,
Oh,
Gilgamesh, and he probably lived somewhere around 2750 BCE, I think is the so we're talking about a story that the earliest versions are written down some 500 years later. Now, imagine something that happened 500 years ago. Uh, Columbus's journey, the Reformation, this kind of thing. And imagine if we only had word of mouth about how that
right.
happened, and then someone in 1970 was like, you know what? I've come up with a new idea, writing. Let's write down this Columbus guy, right? I mean, even with writing, Columbus is,
Even with writing, things do get distorted over centuries.
wildly distorted,
Yeah.
right? Thanks to Washington Irving. You know about Washington Irving, right? He's the one who wrote the biography of Columbus in the 1820s and
Oh,
30s.
right,
He
right.
went to Spain and got all the documents, and then he still has this scene where the men are afraid they're going to go over the edge of the world that he just
Mhm.
made up whole cloth. Like no one was afraid of that. They the flat earthers are basically, we can lay them at the feet of Washington Irving. Um, Along with so many other crimes. No, I like Washington Irving actually. He's not one of my
He's
hated
not on your Mount Rushmore of fraud geniuses.
No, but eventually we're going to have to find some more figures because we've sort of used up my two main punching bags.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure if you think about it for 20 seconds, you'll have a couple more.
No, no. One has to come organically. So
Sure, sure.
we'll have to come up and I'll be like, "Oh right, this guy." Anyway, Epic of Gilgamesh based on a historical guy, but it's one of those Trojan War situations. Much as the Trojan War we think is based on some kind of historical event, by the time it gets written down by Homer or by whoever transcribed the poem that Homer sang, however you understand that to have happened, you're talking about a gap of 500 years again from the historical event. Trojan War usually thought to be around 1190. Homer dated to the 700s, so it's another 500 year. And then you've got Athena on the battlefield, and Aphrodite is like aiming Paris's magic bow as it, shoots at the invulnerable Achilles and whatnot, right? I mean, in other words, hyperbole enters in,
Yeah.
exaggerated aspects, and we see that in the story of Gilgamesh as related in the poem as well. Gilgamesh is as tall as several houses, right? He's like 25 feet tall, 50 feet tall. He's a gigantic man. He's out of
Okay.
all proportion. He's said to be 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, which I've always loved because how does that math work out? If he was
I mean,
if he was
but it
half
is
to
profoundly different, I think, than being one third divine and two thirds human.
well, that's what Enkidu is. So
Oh, I see. Okay.
Enkidu's his double. We'll talk about in a minute. But no, just like if you're half and half, it's like okay. But if you're a third of something, that's like, well, I had 96 relatives that were
Touch of
gods,
human. There's just a
and
touch of human.
right, like but generations of
Which
mixing.
is like, and what third of human are you getting? You know what I mean? Like, are you getting just the bodily functions?
Well, no, the main one he seems to be getting is the fear of death. That's
Oh, wow. What a bad lot.
yeah, that's the
I
big
think if you were two thirds divinity, you'd feel very good about your situation
yeah,
vis-a-vis death.
indeed. But you know, and for the most of the story, Gilgamesh is pretty reckless. He doesn't care. He takes advantage of his people. He abuses them. He's a tyrant. Um, but before we get into the actual story of Gilgamesh, which I will narrate in full, in it's not that long. Don't worry. In full, in brief.
Yeah.
We should talk a little bit about the specific character of the afterlife that's featured in the
Yeah.
tale. So I have a long quote here that I'll read in a minute, but basically, I guess so. Enkidu is created by the gods to kind of humble Gilgamesh, right? Enkidu's this 1/3 divine, 2/3 man. At first, he's a wild man in the forest. Gilgamesh brings one of the temple priestesses. Religion was quite different in ancient Mesopotamia. The temple priestesses were also temple sex workers. So she seduces Enkidu. And before she meets Enkidu, he's hanging with the animals. He's drinking at the pond. The deer's coming right up next to him. The bear's like wandering around, And as soon as he has sex with the temple priestess,
Never felt more human.
the animals run. The animals are like, get away from this guy. He's one of them now. He's changed teams,
Yeah.
Gilgamesh and Enkidu fight, wrestling. Not. There's amazingly homoerotic undertones to the Gilgamesh Enkidu relationship as well. Gilgamesh, it should be said at this point, as far as we can tell, is single. He brings a woman to like seduce his male friend. This is like
Right.
a lot of Freud. I'm sure would have much to say about this. Where he's still with us. Eventually, they go on a bunch of journeys, adventures. They kill monsters together. They kill the great guardian of the cedar forest, Humbaba. The cedar forest is interesting because what part of the Middle East is famous for cedars? Are you aware?
Lebanon?
That's right. So the thought is that this cedar forest maybe encodes a memory of Lebanon. That for Mesopotamia, we're talking about basically contemporary Iraq between the Tigris and the Euphrates. This is the place where some of the earliest
it all began.
Yeah, well, where farming began, where civilization as we know it began. I mean, there could have been other places where it was happening. We just haven't found the evidence yet, obviously. But as far as
we know it,
as far as recorded history goes, yes. And farming was invented there. Big deal. Gilgamesh is from
Ur. A big deal.
Yes.
Bigger than inventing the ShamWow or something like that. Which still something.
I guess.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that guy. Was that Billy Mays, the ShamWow?
I can't remember his name, but
I think it was Billy Mays. He died suddenly.
Really?
Yeah, I think heart attack.
And yet the ShamWow lives on. Although, does it? Are people still purchasing?
I mean, I have 4 right here.
Yeah, I know. I've talked about this one.
Anyway, I've created a jacket of ShamWows, like ancient man used to make of pelts.
Yeah, they actually don't work at all, but they look great in combination in jacket form.
Yeah, it's a great accessory for your night out. In any case, they kill Humbaba, the monster. The city that Gilgamesh is from, I think I was about to say, is Uruk, which I think is where the modern name of the country Iraq comes from. Like it's URUK, IRAQ, like because Iraq was like kind of made up out of the British partitions of the Middle East in the aftermath of the First World War, and I think that might be where they got the name from. Don't quote me on that.
I won't.
They also piss off Ishtar when they're killing the guardian of the forest, Humbaba, who's this kind of dragon monster, lion creature. It's a little ambiguously depicted, but he's a monster. It's very odd. Gilgamesh is strangling Humbaba, and Humbaba's like, "Don't do it, bro. Like, I'm beloved of the gods. The gods are not going to be happy if you kill me." And Enkidu's on the side, being like, "Finish him, bro. Put him in a body bag." Like it's a real. He's really cheering on the murder, and Gilgamesh goes through with it, kills Humbaba. Later, the goddess Ishtar comes down from the sky and is like, "Damn, Gilgamesh is pretty attractive." She tries to seduce Gilgamesh, and he rejects her. He says, "You're not my type." Again, he's kind of spoken for by Enkidu. It's a little bit unclear. They go so far as to even throw a thigh bone. Enkidu throws a thigh bone at the goddess. and she's not happy. She's so unhappy that
I mean, imagine just getting pinged with a thigh bone.
yeah, and it's probably a big thigh bone too,
Yeah, I'd
right?
say it's a huge thigh bone if I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's some meat on it, some grease, some oils splattered on the goddess's finery. Um, she's so upset that she calls down the bull of heaven, which
Hmm.
is this
Don't
another.
make me get the bull of heaven.
The bull of heaven comes, it rampages, it tears up all the land, it's killing people, it's killing peasants.
He's probably just thrilled to be out. You know what I mean?
It surely was. It's making
Seems
new
like he's just kind of
rivers.
waiting in reserve most often.
Its antlers are going into the. Are do we call those antlers? Horns, I guess.
Horns, yeah.
The bull's antlers.
A bull's antlers.
Wow. I'm the one who's critical of the great geniuses of the past. Anyway, um, the the bull rampages once again. They get it in, and Enkidu's like, "Finish it off, Gilgamesh, finish it off," and he does. And the goddess Ishtar is pissed. She's like, First you killed Humbaba, now you've killed the bull of heaven.
Not the bull of heaven.
Enkidu's gonna die. You gotta pay for this, Gilgamesh." And lo and behold,
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks later, Enkidu's like, not something stuck in my throat. Not feeling so good. He fades. Gilgamesh treats, oils his body. Does
Maybe a little bloodletting.
yeah, the best necromancers are called. The best shamans are administering herbs and poultices.
But to
But
no event.
yeah, and Enkidu dies, and Gilgamesh is distraught. However, before he dies, he relates to, as he's sick and he's moving towards death, he relates to Gilgamesh a dream he has that is the best description we have of the Mesopotamian conception of the afterlife.
Yes.
Okay. So he describes this, and this is a translation. This is from Book 7 of the Epic of Gilgamesh, Tablet 7, I guess you could say. And this is a translation by Stephen Mitchell, which some people say is not the best translation, but I think it's quite readable and quite well rendered. He says, "A creature appeared with a lion's head. His face was ghastly. He had a lion's paws, an eagle's talons and wings. He flew at me. He seized me by the hair. I tried to struggle, but with one blow he capsized me like a raft. He leaped upon me. Like a bull, he trampled my bones. 'Gilgamesh, save me,' I cried, but you didn't save me. You were afraid, and you didn't come. The creature touched me, and suddenly feathers covered my arms. He bound them behind me and forced me down to the underworld, the house of darkness, the home of the dead, where all who enter never return to the sweet earth again. Those who dwell there squat in the darkness. Dirt is their food. Their drink is clay. They are dressed in feathered garments like birds. They never see light. And on door and bolt the dust lies thick. When I entered that house, I looked, and around me were piles of crowns. I saw proud kings who had ruled the land, who had set out roast meat before the gods and offered cool water and cakes for the dead. I saw high priests and acolytes squatting, exorcists and prophets, the ecstatic and the dull. I saw Etana, the primeval king, Sumukwan, the wild animals god, and Ereshkigal, the somber queen of the underworld. Belit Seri, her scribe, was kneeling before her, reading from the tablet on which each mortal's death is inscribed. When the queen saw me, she glared and said, 'Who has brought this new resident here?'"
Fascinating.
Yeah.
The first thing that sort of jumps out, right,
Yeah.
to me is okay, so we've got this depiction of an underworld, right? Which itself is sort of a breakthrough for our early conceptions of what people thought about the afterlife.
Bingo.
And it doesn't seem as though this is a judgment based fate. It just seems as though this is where you do go. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't matter if you set out sacrifice, right? You set out food, you did all the right things.
You were the king.
King, a prophet, ecstatic, high priest.
You were the best exorcist.
Just doesn't matter. And This is quite fascinating too, because it's like obviously, sort of the earliest one that we have, but that it doesn't put any positive twist on death,
Yeah.
right? Where typically I think a lot of these conceptions that come out are also partially like built to cope with the like awesomeness and horrific idea of dying, right? That like maybe there's something better, maybe there's not dust on the doors or whatever, at the least.
Yeah, I think you're mistaken though. Actually, I think Christianity has that. But Christianity, you have to remember, is kind of late in the game, right?
Sure, but like aren't there other ones like
Well,
where
well,
there's like multiverses that we'll get
in
to,
a couple
right?
weeks we'll talk about the Vedic religion, which is the earliest form of what would become Hinduism.
Right.
That has some stirrings of ideas of reincarnation. But if you look at early Jewish conceptions of the afterlife, Sheol, they call
Mhm.
it, it's very similar to this. You're basically just like underground, plodding along. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just
I mean,
forever.
this one seems not worse than not good, not bad. This seems like a bad time.
I guess. I mean, you are dressed in feathered garments like birds. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want that. That feels like it'd be hot and uncomfortable.
I think it's cool. I think it's
A
cold.
bird costume, you would want that seemingly for eternity? Just going around. Can you fly? Maybe if you can fly, if you're
Can't
just
fly.
going
There's
around,
no sky. You're locked in the earth, right?
you're just grounded with feathers. It's like especially cruel.
But I think
Like,
this is interesting when we talked last week about animals. We talked about bird feathers or paintings of animals. We talked about the lion man, right? That there was this connection with animals in the cave art, that this is a cave like idea of the afterlife, right?
mhm.
I don't know if I mean, we'd obviously be assuming a lot to draw a direct line from Neolithic peoples all the way to, you know, the dawnings of
Sure.
civilization. But
Hmm.
I think it is interesting to note the parallel, right?
Hmm.
And I think what is interesting about this is that it's an egalitarian idea of the afterlife,
Yes.
right? That everyone, that you're the king, you're there. You're the lowest peasant, you're there, right? The high priest, you're there. The exorcists and prophets, if you're one of the ecstatic, you're there. If you're one of the dull, bad news, you're also there, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. And I like that there are these kind of gods that are chilling out down there. The wild animals god,
Yeah. It's kind
Samukwan.
of on duty down there instead of up top.
I mean, we'll see that when we get to, probably not in this first run of Afterlife Eps, but when we get to the Greeks later, right? There are various stages and different gods.
Oh, wait, in this version, there are gods in the sky, right?
Yeah, yeah, like
Okay.
Ishtar. But I mean, there's a story of Ishtar descending to the afterlife. This is another one of the earliest poems that we have, which is called The Descent of Inanna. Inanna is an earlier name for Ishtar. But
Okay.
basically, the afterlife that it depicts is very similar to this, and it's the same. Erish Kegel is the queen of the somber queen of the afterlife, or whatever it was.
Is she in the sky?
No, she's the one who lives. She's the queen of the underworld.
She's the queen of the underworld.
She's
Okay. But there are
Persephone.
other gods in the sky, like Ishtar.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Leal and a bunch of other ones for sure.
Mhm.
But there are some that are kind of hanging out. Etana, the primeval king, is hanging down there. So there, it's a little bit like the Greeks, right? Because the Greeks, most of the gods reside on Mount Olympus. Then you've got Hades, and you've got Persephone, his wife, who stays for part of the year, which is how they explained winter. It's like when Persephone goes down, her mother's so sad she doesn't make the crops grow, the weather
Right.
gets bad, right?
It's also that last line stands out a bit too. When the queen saw me, she glared and said, "Who has brought this new resident here?" Okay, so I mean, is that asking if this person was killed? Like, what does this mean exactly? Like, if you just died naturally, would she be saying this to him?
Probably. I mean, he did die naturally. Well,
Right. So like,
he would die naturally. Like he's not dead yet. This is a vision he has before
yes,
he
right.
actually
But
dies.
like,
But
what could the answer to that question be if one simply passes?
yeah, I mean, I just like it because it's so ominous.
Yeah.
Like, what do we have here? It's like something a
Mhm.
witch would say, you know,
Yeah.
as you get trapped in her gingerbread house or what have you. So I mentioned the descent of Ishtar, and in that poem, at each stage of her passage down into the afterlife, the trappings of her godliness are stripped away. So first it's like she loses her crown, then she loses her decorative jewels, then she loses her clothing, then she kind of gets cloaked in the feathers again. This is also an ancient trope, right? The
Yeah.
descent to the afterlife. Like the story of Orpheus rescuing his dead bride. You know Orpheus and Eurydice? They're
Yeah.
getting Orpheus is the guy whose poetry and music is so beautiful that when he's playing, the rocks move closer so they can hear. The birds, all the animals of the forest, like his melody is
And
so
is
sweet.
this the first written articulation
Of this ancient trope, yeah.
of this trope that then would continue for thousands of
Well,
years?
it's one of the recurring themes of epics, right? In the Odyssey, Odysseus descends into the afterlife with in order to speak with the shade of Tiresias. He doesn't actually go in, but he opens a portal to access it so that Tiresias can come and tell him how he has to get home, right?
Okay.
In the Aeneid, Aeneas goes into the afterlife. And when he's in the afterlife, who does he meet? You better believe it. He meets Caesar Augustus, who
Oh, wow.
hasn't even been born yet. So in that
Interesting.
conception, the pre-born are also hanging out in hell.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So and his guide is like, check it out over there. That's Augustus. He's gonna be a big deal in about
Trust me, that
780 years. Yeah, or whatever.
guy's gonna have a say.
Yeah. Uh, in the Ishtar poem, she's allowed to get out because she's a god, right?
Mhm.
And she has to leave someone in her place though, because it's like you can't. There has to be a trade. Like there can't be one less person in hell or in this shadow realm. So she
Sure.
sacrifices her husband, which is one of
The
the
ultimate wife guy.
which is one of the reasons Gilgamesh actually
Yeah,
does.
I'll keep the balance between the underworld and the...
Hey, honey, are you busy? Oh, nothing. No, that's not a knife in my hand. What are you talking? It's one of the reasons
happy
Gilgamesh.
wife, happy afterlife.
There
I
we
think
go.
it's
There we go. Yeah. But Gilgamesh rejects her partly because he knew that happened. He's like, you're gonna just kill me when it's
yeah.
convenient for you.
I've seen this movie before.
Exactly. Um. So
Of course, that also implies that there's preborn that like Spielberg's down there too, right?
Spielberg's there. Franklin, James Joyce. Like all our favorites. Taylor Swift. Everyone.
Harmony
Everyone.
Korine,
Harmony Korine is there. Just
just there. Harmony Korine with Caesar Augustus.
Jimi Hendrix. Not yet born. Not yet dead.
Sort of like waiting their turn kind of thing, right?
I think so. I think that I don't know that the souls are differentiated yet.
I
One
see.
other aspect of the afterlife vision, before we get back to the main Gilgamesh narrative, we should talk about is she has a scribe, right?
Mhm.
Which, of course, at the age of 7, I received my first scribe, the Dr. Evil speech, haunt my dreams forever. Um, there's a tablet on which each mortal's death is inscribed. So this implies this is almost like Calvinism. Like in this version of hell or the afterlife, the queen of the gods has a guy who's like scratching on to different tablets how everyone who will ever be born is going to die.
Yeah.
Almost like everything
Oh,
is
God.
foreordained.
So he's coming up with it, or
I'm
he's
presumably she's dictating, or
okay. So
it's.
she knows, and then he just writes.
I mean, we don't get that much information here, right? But that's kind of dark, right? Like,
I would say so.
do you think that's consonant with the ancient world? Like everything's fated, right? Amor
Yes.
fati. That
Yep.
seems to be something the Greeks believed in, and the Greeks are only a mere 2,000 years after this. The classical
And just
Greeks.
down the street, basically.
Yeah, not too far away.
Mm.
There's definitely influence from this vision of the afterlife on the development of the Old Testament in early Judaism, and probably on Greek ideas of the afterlife as well. So once he's dead, once Enkidu is dead, there's a really dark scene where Gilgamesh is like staying by the body, like trying to. He's like in one of those medical dramas. He's doing CPR for too long, you know.
Defibrillator, and then someone has to put their hand on his
Yeah,
shoulder.
yeah, exactly. And the hand on the shoulder, though, in this case, because all of his subjects are terrified of this guy. He's way
Right.
bigger than everyone. He's violent. He's
Putting the hand on Noah Wiley.
yeah, no, yeah, Dr. Robbie /
Dr.
Dr.
Robbie.
Carter. Yeah. Um,
His
no,
girlfriend's dead.
yeah. Sorry, buddy.
Spoilers. Yeah, sorry.
What's gonna happen instead is that a maggot starts crawling out of Enkidu's nose.
Okay.
And Gilgamesh is like, "Damn, this won't do." So at that point, he realizes he's dead. He buries him, or they do a funeral, and then he builds a massive gold statue of Enkidu. And he's like, "Well, this will be just as good as having my friend." But to his dismay, the gold statue doesn't speak. Doesn't have can't wrestle with him. You know, can't encourage him to strangle monsters and murder the bull of heaven. What was it?
May still be able to have some sort of sexual tension. It'd be one way, I guess, at that point.
Maybe.
I'm sure people are into statues. That's got to be a fetish.
Oh, for sure. But it's like an unrequited kind of.
Yeah. But that would be in keeping with how unrequited everything else that he wanted from the statue was, right?
I guess so. But it doesn't satisfy him.
Mm-hmm.
So he sets out on a mission. He's going to find his ancestor because he's now deathly. He's not only has he lost his friend, he's now deathly afraid of his own mortality.
Sure.
He's like, I don't want to die.
If it can happen to him, it can happen to me.
And it will happen. It seems bad. It seems really bad. But good news. He's heard rumors from the east. His ancestor, Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim is immortal. And he's Gilgamesh's great-great-grandfather, what have you. And
what are the chances?
He lives out in the sea. He lives on an island. Perhaps Bahrain, somewhere out in the Persian Gulf.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere not too far. When I used to teach this a lot, students would always be like, wait, where does he go? Is it Japan? You know, like, does Gilgamesh go all the way across Asia? No, I don't think so. I think it's a little bit more localized. But still, this is a time when epic travel, probably pretty rare, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're going to the cedar forest or you're going for purposes of war, essentially, right? So, and a lot of this could be interpreted as a metaphor for war, right? When they go to the cedar forest, they get a bunch of trees. It's like, oh, this is a war of resource extraction, you know? And they have a monster they fight. Well, is that monster really a monster? Or is that just the army of the Lebanese people that were living there at the time, you know? So he sets out on this journey, and there are a lot of epic feats. He comes to the cave where the sun goes through every night when it goes down. I will say this about the ancient Mesopotamians. I was joking about Irving and flat Earth earlier. The Mesopotamians seem to have had a kind of flat Earth conception or cosmology.
Well, can't win them all.
Yeah, but they also believe that the sun went into a cave at night and then went through the cave and then came back on the other side. That was their explanation for like night and day, essentially. Mm-hmm. So he comes to the cave, and this is the fastest way. This is like a shortcut, but he has to like run through the whole cave, which is, you know, hundreds of miles long or whatever in their conception. And there's like a scorpion waiting at the gate that's like, you can't do it, Gilgamesh. You know, he's kind of chiding him.
Sure.
To prove the scorpion wrong, guess what he does? Runs through that cave, and just as the sun is coming in to burn him to death, he's safe on the other side. But he's kind of a man insane at this point. He's a lad insane, as David Bowie might say.
Right. He's fending off death with the sort of quest for immortality to chase at the same time.
Yeah, and there's something kind of manic about his behavior. Because...
Well, those are two pretty extreme poles to be occupying, right?
Yeah. He comes to this place that's getting closer to the water's edge. And he approaches, and the barkeeper, it's a bar. The barkeeper, Shaduri, sees him coming. She goes up on the roof. He's like, hey, what are you doing on the roof? And she's like, well, you look like a madman and a murderer. So when I saw you coming, I went up on the roof. And he's like, I'm not a madman. I'm Gilgamesh. My friend died. What's your problem?
Insane.
Yeah, yeah. I am calm. It's just like,
I'm calm. You're not calm. I'm calm.
yeah, it's just classic escalation.
Yeah.
And she's like, look, you're looking for Utnapishtim. He's out on the island past the waters of death.
No,
He's
just
like,
the waters of death.
yeah. She's
No
like,
biggie.
but don't worry. Urshanabi, the boatman, is just over there. He can ferry you across to the waters of death. Don't worry about it. But she also says some really good advice. She's like, Gilgamesh, bro, you're a king. You have all the wealth you could ever need. Your people, will do what they'll obey you, they'll honor you. You're gonna die. That's part of life. Like, why don't you just get over yourself? And he's like, shut up. Right? But like
the guy who quits the therapist who's too good.
yeah. I mean, she gives the moral of the story.
I don't need to hear this.
I mean, one way of looking at this, she delivers the moral of the story early. She's like, come on, bro. And he's like, he's just not ready to hear it. Sure. She's like, all right, well, whatever. Urshanabi is just across the next.
Go to your little boat. Go get your little immortality.
Fine. Yeah, exactly. So he goes, and he sees the boat up ahead, but there are all these weird creatures around it. They're made of stone. They're rendered in this translation as the Stone Man.
Mm-hmm.
Which always makes me think of that great moment in Game of Thrones when Jorah Mormont and Tyrion are on the boat, and all of a sudden he's like, Stone Man, and the the grayscale sufferers attack them, right? What does Gilgamesh do? These stone men are the helpers of Urshanabi. They're the guys that row the boat. What do you think if you're trying to get onto the boat? How would you treat the stone men, Michael?
Probably pay them.
And
if I had enough wealth to build gold statues of my friend.
You know how in Gilgamesh, in a way, he does pay them. He pays them with death. He kills them. He kills them, and it's just
he takes the boat
for no reason. No, he doesn't take the boat. Urshanabi is away. He kills the stone man. This is not explained at all. Just in a paroxysm of rage.
Okay.
He kills
so he's
them.
Proving that when he was saying that he was calm, he was absolutely calm.
Yeah. I mean, he's basically proving what Shuduri just said exactly right. Okay. Urshanabi comes back and he's like, all right, guys, I got some food for... What? My stone man! And he's like, well, how? We can't get across the waters of death without the stone man. The ocean's too deep. There's no way we can possibly, no one can run the oars.
Right.
And then Gilgamesh is like, I have a solution. He goes and chops down 100-foot trees, strips them of their bark, and makes them into these kind of punting poles, and he's like, problem solved. So somehow all these poles...
Problem that he created for no reason.
Exactly. Urshanabi's like, okay, I guess. He uses this, they go across the waters of death, they survive, they're fine, and they reach Utnapishtim, who lives on this island with his wife. He's immortal. Now, Utnapishtim is cool because he's Noah, basically.
Okay.
He was the guy who was the only holy man. The gods, Enki, I think, the trickster god, hated humanity, so wiped them out, but...
Had a soft spot.
No, I mean, the other gods warned Utnapishtim. He built an ark. It's not really the same as the Noah's Ark. It's more of a box. It's like a floating big box. He got the...
It's less an ark. It's more a box.
Yeah. He got the animals, all the same elements of the Noah story. He even does the thing where he sends the birds out after. And the gods...
Getting on that one and being like... I mean, well, the ark's a little nicer, man. I'm not going to lie.
When the first translator of this passage discovered this, he was so excited to have corroboration of the biblical legend that in the middle of one of the Oxford libraries, or maybe it was somewhere else in London, he stripped off all of his clothes and ran through the library naked.
Like pure ecstasy.
At having confirmed the Bible to be true in his
mind. Now that is true, because how could How could such a similar story be told over
Well,
such an
maybe the Bible one is just copied from this story that's like
maybe, who knows? But
1,200 years older. I don't know. Or at least influenced. Did the Jewish people spend any time in Babylon during the
mm,
conversation? Oh, wait, there
mm.
was that whole Babylon captivity. Is Babylon where Uruk is
I mean,
kind of.
sometimes you're in the library, you want to rip your clothes off. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. In any case, Utnapishtim's like, look, the only way you can be immortal is if you pass my test. First test is you have to stay up with no sleep for 10 days. Gilgamesh is like, on it. Let's do it. Uh, Immediately falls asleep. Sleeps for 10 days. And for each day he's asleep, Utnapishtim's wife bakes a bread. And when he wakes up, so that Utnapishtim can be like, look, that bread was built when you look, it's rotted. This one's getting harder.
Yeah.
And Gilgamesh is like, damn, well, I got to be immortal. This can't be the only way. He's like, fine, there's one other way. There's a magic plant. It's at the bottom of this lake over here. Dive down. It's like a thorny. It only grows in this one spot. Grab that and eat
More
it.
dangerous than staying awake for 12 days, but now that he's failed that, he has to try this, right?
Yeah, I think that's the idea. But also, it's a more Gilgamesh coded activity, right?
Yeah, for sure.
He's a jock. Like he doesn't need this weird sleep endurance.
That's right.
So he dives down. He finds it. Comes back up. He's like, check it out, Urshanabi. I've got the immortality herb. We're all good. But you know what? I'm gonna like take a shower. I'm gonna wash myself off this kind of grimy water. Sets the immortality plant down, and while he's cleaning off, a snake comes up and just steals it. Now, if this were you, Michael, what would you do with the immortality flower?
I mean, all you have to do is eat it.
That's right.
Yeah, you obviously.
Just
I mean, Stu, we go weeks without showering. Like what?
you're down in the immortality plant right away.
Yes, 100%. Oh, well, yes, and then I'd be full of dread for other reasons, but
So it would solve nothing essentially.
sure.
So
I'd go from like fearing death to fearing not being able to die. I think would be a pretty seamless transition.
Yep. So he gets on the boat. He's down for a minute, and he's like,
yeah, you'd be down for a bit after that.
He had 2 shots at immortality. He failed both miserably, but he goes back. He goes back to Uruk, and you know what he's like? Urshanabi, have you ever seen my? Your stone men are dead. It's nothing for you here. Why don't you come? To Uruk with me? So they go back to his city, and the poem ends with him describing the beauties of the city to Urshanabi, and he's kind of finally accepted the lesson of Shaduri, the barkeep.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I've got all this stuff. Like, I should just live my life and worry about death, not worry about death, knowing that it's inevitable, knowing that there's no, but that's okay. And now look, he has a new friend. He's replaced Enkidu with the boatman. Now, is the boatman as cool as Enkidu? Maybe not, but.
And was mortality actually inevitable? No, he blew it. So now he has to talk like it is, but that's fine.
Yeah. So, that's the story of Gilgamesh. Pretty thoroughly narrated. There may be a few incidents.
And just like a really fascinating and important like precursor to basically everything that we're going to continue talking about through the course of the various Afterlife mini series that we're going to be doing, right?
Right, and future End of the World episodes about immortality, because that's a theme we've already come up upon a bunch of times. One of the things that's fascinating about Gilgamesh is we've already touched on its influence on the Noah story, the idea of hell being similar, certain Greek themes being very similar. Gilgamesh was lost to the West basically from. I mean, I don't think the Romans had ever heard of Gilgamesh. And it wasn't rediscovered until the 1850s. So there's like 2,000 years of European literary tradition where this is just not known.
Oh.
Which is part of the reason the guy is so excited when he's translated.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. He was the first to ever translate it into English. He was like, oh my God, this confirms so much. And what's really interesting is to note the similarities to other great works of literature that emerged in the time between that had no known link, right? Like, I don't think Virgil knew about Gilgamesh when he's writing the Aeneid.
Sure.
I don't think Homer necessarily knew about it when he's writing the Odyssey. right? I think the idea is that there are other stories that come between those that influenced, Homer's conceptions, that influenced, right? So it's kind of interesting tale of literary influence. Um,
Yeah, I mean, that really sort of just blew my mind. I've been operating the entire time thinking like, oh wow, this obviously set the table for
well,
people.
but it did, but indirectly.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm going back, I feel like I should apologize to the library guy.
Oh, it's all right. He was
I mean,
he was a
that
little
actually,
that was a little bit over the top.
but less over the top than you portrayed it when I was under the impression that everyone from Gilgamesh's time onward would be able to get a hold of this thing, or at
No,
least
no.
not everyone the whole time, but eventually. You
Yeah.
tell me 1850?
Yeah, there's at least 2,500 years or so
Wow.
where certainly no one in the West knew anything about
Wow.
it. Yeah. Maybe in Persian traditions there was more awareness of it, but
Okay.
it's not that much give and take
No,
between
I
them.
think that's a pretty spectacular way to end it. That's
Yeah. So how do you rate this idea of the afterlife? You're not too comfortable with this idea of just sitting in a bird costume in the ground forever.
yeah, I mean, I we've talked about a few of the different ones before years ago when we had these conversations, and it definitely gets much more exciting and varied. But again, like you can kind of see the role, the sort of like laying down a base, which is kind of interesting. Some of the consistent things that do reappear, or at least like begin to feel a little more malleable, um, kind of come out here, right? They're kind of set. The foundation is sort of set here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good stuff.
And I do like I remain probably most fascinated by the fact that like in this early conception that we have in front of us, it's like the first thing that is made clear is that there's no judgment and there's no impact of your actual life on the type of afterlife you have. And I think that's a really interesting place to begin.
Yeah, I agree. Well, next week we'll be moving a little bit to the south, and we'll be talking about ancient Egypt, the
Mm-hmm.
earliest conceptions of the afterlife in ancient Egypt. Talk a little bit about mummifications, pyramids, which, as you know, are secret energy batteries, of course, built by
Yep.
aliens. Psych.
And we will cover that.
You mean like Chariot of the Gods type stuff, like
Yeah.
Eric von
And,
Däniken?
and built by aliens, right?
That's the
Von Donegan, right? Is
Von
that what we
Eric von Däniken, yeah. And who's the new one? Graham Hancock, right?
Yeah, Graham Hancock. I mean, Graham Hancock, we will not be covering, but will be an episode for sure in this podcast at some point.
Yeah, he's a great crank. All right. Well, in the meantime, if you like the show, you can follow us on the podcatcher of your choice. If you really like it, you can tell some friends about the podcast and or leave us a rating or review on that podcatcher. You can also follow us on Instagram at the end of the world WMS. And until next week, this has been the end of the world with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Stu, and we'll talk to you real soon.